Hello chess friends and welcome to your of Chess channel and welcome to the day 2 of the FIDE Rapid Chess Championship in 2023 that's going on now in Uzbekistan. So today we had 4 rounds of Rapid Chess. Tomorrow the last 4 and decisive rounds will be played. Tomorrow we'll know who is the winner of this prestigious and beautiful chess event. So in the round 9, a very interesting match has been played between Magnus Carlsen and Vincent Keymer. Before this round 9, the last game of the second day, Magnus had a good situation, had 6.5 points out of first 8 rounds. Vincent Keymer had 6 points, and it was really, I think, decisive encounter because who wins this game, I think, would have really a clear situation. Then in the later stage of the tournament, it was really one of the most important matches so far in this tournament. So let's check out now what happened in the game between Magnus Carlsen and Vincent Keymer. So Magnus opened here with the move e4. We have e5 by Vincent, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to b5. The Ruy Lopez is on the board. a6, the Morphy defense, bishop to a4, knight to f6, and now a very interesting sideline, a very interesting variation. We have now the so-called Tarash variation of the close Ruy Lopez. We have now bishop to e7, and now after kingside Carlsen, this becomes now the so-called Morphy attack of the Ruy Lopez. So interesting idea here by Magnus. Usually you want to, of course, break and enter with c3 d4 in the center of the board, but with this line knight to c3, you want to have a greater control, a greater grip around this center of the board. So in my opinion, also a very interesting sideline. Nothing wrong with this. I think here Magnus Carlsen wanted to deviate, I think, from the main lines of the Spanish opening. So b5 by Vincent. We have bishop to b3, d6, preparing bishop to g4, and now a3. Provocative move, I would say, here by Magnus Carlsen, because the next couple of moves are really a little bit forced, and I really love the fact that Vincent Keymer recognized everything what was going on now in the opening stage. Vincent played, of course, the aggressive bishop to g4. After h3, the correct choice is here actually to give up the bishop for the knight, but after queen to f3, now the knight comes into the game, and now we have a beautiful fork against these two pieces, and Vincent gets also the bishop back, I would say, because here Magnus is not continuing anymore the game with the bishop pair. We have c takes b3, which becomes, of course, a structural weakness. Magnus has now double pawns, but the main goal now by Magnus is to break and enter with the move d4. The problem a little bit here is that you cannot stop this d4 move with the move c5. If you do that, then you would have, I think, a weak square in the position here around the square d5. So in my opinion, weakening the structure too much in the center of the board is not good. So here Vincent played the normal kingside Carlsen, and Magnus, of course, breaks now in the center of the board with the move d4. So what should black do? Here Vincent introduces us a certain theoretical novelty, a move that has not been played so far in chess history. In chess history, knight to d7 has been played with a further control of the center of the board. Here after move c6, I like here this flexibility by Vincent, because he has also in the later stage opportunities, maybe if necessary, if possible, maybe to break and enter with the move d5. So really good move, good novelty here by Vincent Keymer. We have bishop to e3. Magnus gets the bishop out. We have to say it, Magnus Carlsen's dark square bishop is slightly better than Vincent's dark square bishop, because it is a little bit blocked out by its own pawn here on d6. So Magnus controls now the center very well with his dark square bishop. We have a5, Magnus takes, d takes e5, d takes e5, and Magnus keeps the queens on the board, doesn't want to simplify the game too much, is trying to have some kind of an activity here by the heavy artillery on the d file. We have queen to d7, a4, again a certain, I would say, provocative move here by Magnus, because if you pass through with the move b4, actually this would not be good. This would be, I think, a huge positional mistake, and that's a good part, because Vincent recognized, of course, Magnus' threats. b4 would be very dangerous, because after rook to d1, you have to step back, and now you get knight to b1, knight to d2, and then knight to c4. The knight would be on the optimal square. Basically, what you want to then do is maybe even give up the bishop for a knight, and when the knight gets here on the beautiful square on c4, I think the knight would be much more powerful because of the weak e5 pawn. So that was now the tricky idea here by Magnus Carlsen. But after move a4, Vincent is not falling for this, goes for the flexibility, goes keeps simply the tension in the center of the board, plays first of all rook to c8, places the queen where the rook where already the queen is. So now very good move here by Vincent. Came a rook from a to c1. Magnus continues the pressure also on the c file. We have queen to e6, rook from f to d1, and now h6. I would say this is really really an equal game. Nothing wrong here for both sides. h6 also very good move here by Vincent, because he's not allowing here to get, I would say, positionally pinned, sort of, because in some lines we could give up the bishop for knight and search maybe even for some good scores for the knight, if possible, maybe around the square d5. So that's why h6 also nice interesting move here by Vincent. We have knight to b1. Magnus is searching really for an improvement of the knight. We have knight to h7, knight to f3, controlling the g5 square, knight to g5, bishop to g5, and after bishop to g5, Magnus goes now with rook to b1. Again, Magnus is hoping to get somehow a better position for the knight. I would say even that maybe even slightly, this knight is slightly better than the bishop, because the bishop has really a tough time to control everything all over the board. The knight has really a certain flexibility all over the board, and of course the main goal is by Magnus here to somehow to cement the knight on c5, or if possible somehow on the c4, but so far the c4 square is taken by the pawn on b5. Bishop to f6, rook to d3, Magnus goes for the c6 pawn, and Vincent protects it in a good fashion with rook to b6. 8 takes b5, good move again by Vincent. 8 takes b5, because you cannot take rook to c6, because also you lose this one, and this would be then also now a good game here for black. So that's why after rook to rook takes b5, we have rook to d1 by Magnus, rook to b8 by Vincent, and now also rook to d3. Magnus protects simply the weak b3 pawn. Rook from rook from the 5th rank to the 6th rank here on the b file. We have knight to d2, and finally Magnus gets what he wants. He gets now finally the knight on this beautiful c4 square, a maneuver that we have talked about previously. This was now the main strategic plan here by Magnus Carlsen. We have a4, knight to c4, hitting the rook. Rook takes b3, rook takes b3. We have 8 takes b3, and now after rook to b3, now comes, I think, maybe even the tiny little first inaccuracy here by Vincent. He plays rook takes b3. I like more really this choice, maybe to play rook to d8, keeping somehow the tension in the game, keeping the game more complicated, because in some lines you could get even some back rank checkmates. So if the bishop gets maybe somehow on this diagonal, controls the h2 square, so maybe it was better for Vincent somehow to complicate things against Magnus. But of course, when you play against Magnus, you hope for a draw, especially with the black pieces. I think everyone would be satisfied to get a draw against Magnus. So that's why Vincent simplified the game further with the move rook to b3. But as I said, maybe slightly better it was somehow to play sharper chess. So here we have queen to d7, we have queen to b8, here Vincent drops back to h7, we have queen to d6, and now queen to d6. This simplification I really don't like, because it was simply better again to somehow keep more pieces on the board. When you have the pieces on the board, then Magnus has to also worry about the back rank problems. Here from move queen to d6, I think the knight becomes here really a much better piece than the bishop, because the bishop is always stuck to the defense of the pawn on e5. I'm not saying this is winning or something, but it's complicated, I think, to play such an endgame from black's perspective. Bishop to d8, Magnus reroutes the knight, attacks the pawn, gets the knight again back into the game, delivers a check, and here, after king to g5, here Magnus played king to f1, and now comes, I think, really the critical moment of this game. Here, Vincent played the first really decisive mistake in the game. Here, he should have played simply bishop to b6. It's very hard also for Magnus now to attack the position further, but what Vincent did, he played bishop to d6. Now Magnus had the immediate great opportunity to play knight to f5. Here Vincent would be really forced to retreat to, with the bishop on f8, and now with king to e2, I think this is a much better continuation now for white, because after move something like g6, you can reroute the knight on e3, and I think there is a clear path now for the king to get after this pawn. So in my opinion, this would be, I think, even maybe a winning continuation here for Magnus. Or here after move king to e2, what you could do is maybe to play the move c4. Now you control the f4 square with the move g3. After something like g6, so we kick away the king. The king has to step back, and again, this one is weak, I think. Again, devastating position here for black. The engine gives here +2 evaluation in white's favor, so I think Magnus Carlsen would win this continuation for sure. So as I said, knight to f5 was more correct than the usual, I would say, principled move to play knight to d5. Of course, it's many times the best way to centralize the pieces as much as you can, but not in every occasion, because here knight to f5 would simply force Vincent to get back, and now after king to e2, this one is, I think, undefendable. So this would be, I think, a completely winning endgame here for Magnus. But after knight to d5, the game becomes simplified. You see now f5 is possible. Here by Vincent realizes the positional problems and now plays the correct move, f5. Magnus gets the king closer. We have here g4 by Magnus. Magnus gets the pawn back, and here after Vincent took the pawn, still the knight is controlling the bishop out of game. Many weaknesses are there also here in black's position. After a couple of moves, f takes e3, bishop to e3, Magnus attacks the bishop, gets the king closer. Here Vincent is hoping to get some kind of a passer, but the issue is that the knight is on that the pawn is on a dark square, and it's always vulnerable to the attack by the knight. So that's why here Magnus Carlsen simply went for his pawn again, and here after a couple of checks, he blocked out now the pawn on the g file. Here after a couple of perpetuals, here the game was decided by a draw. So great game, I think, great positional battle, but you see how Magnus plays really this knight versus bishops endgames. He's really, I think, popular for this kind of endgames where he searches the position where the knight is better than the bishop, because the bishop had really a tough time to get back into the game. But the decisive mistake was this move by Magnus, knight to d5. Here knight to f5 would really, I think, brilliant, because here the bishop would be out. We have to say it. Vincent made also the mistake with bishop to d6. Here Vincent should have simply played here bishop to b6, and still I think this would be an equal position. So fair draw, I would say. Vincent defended against Magnus Carlsen, has still great chances in the tournament, because after 9 rounds, Vincent Keymer has now 6.5 points. We have 3 leaders, Magnus Carlsen, Richard Rapport, and Yoon Yang with 7 points out of the first 9 rounds. So tomorrow we'll see who is going to be the winner. But this will be still a dynamic tournament. No one of the top 3 lost some games, so in the next couple of rounds we know who is the winner of the FIDE Rapid Championship in 2023. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Really interesting ideas of the Ruy Lopez. If you want to see more content here on my YouTube chess channel, check out our competitive chess games, but also our competitive chess games played by computers. Here are some links of our playlist, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say? Chess is the best, of course.